Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. It's pretty simple what we do here. We go back and forth. We talk about the latest home video releases. Some good, some bad, some really awful. But you know what? We have a good time talking about it, and
We
it's
do.
yeah. So with that, I'm gonna let you get this party started.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of parties, that's a great transition to the first batch of movies because this always a party on Halloween night. It's a trio of movies from Scream Factory, and that is Night of the Demons 1 through 3, which I'll kind of go through title by title pretty quickly. But these were my first time watching any of these movies, and it was a journey. It was fun. To varying degrees, but it was fun. First one, the original Night of the Demons, is the one out on 4K newly, and this is the one directed by Kevin Tenney, who I've uh, covered some of his work in the past. I believe I covered Witch Trap from MVD earlier this year. No reversible cover art. And basically, the basic premise of this is like there's a group of kids get or come together to have a party at this like abandoned funeral home, and there's some ancient like demonic presence unlocked, and it's kind of like a trapped in a house jump like demon jumping like bodies and like things weird stuff happens and just demonic haunting stuff going on. It's a good mixture of like actual like gross like body horror and like demonic horror and some like dark humor. It's a good blend of tones, I feel. I think the only thing that's a little bit lacking with this one is the pacing's just a little bit off. It takes a little bit to kind of get to the meat of things between like meeting the characters at the beginning, which I like several of the characters until you get to like where they're actually getting haunted by like the demonic presence. It's a little bit of a dip, and you're kind of like, okay, let's get this going. But overall, I think it's a really fun movie, and it's unexpected start to a franchise, which led to Demons 2, which was taken over by a friend of the channel, Brian Trenchard Smith, who I know you and Andre have spoken to in the past. No reversible cover art, but there's artwork underneath. Here's like the disc art here, and I'll kind of take out the artwork that you can see the nun parrying with her sword. This one's fun. It's actually my favorite of the trilogy. I like it a little bit more than the original. Angela's back. I like that there's like these taglines that are great. This one's Angela's throwing another party, trick or treat sucker. And this one is like a kind of set at a boarding school where once again some kids find themselves on Halloween at Angela's place at this Hull House, and once again demonic presence, but it kind of like Angela gets to get outside of Hull House because there's like a piece of like an object taken outside that she's able to follow. And I really like kind of the tonal balance and the pacing a little bit better here. I like the cast a little bit more, not just because I have a small crush on one of the actresses on here. That's not the only reason, but it did help. I gained a new crush. That was fun. So I believe that's Christy Harris. She's a cutie. This is a lot of fun. There's like some really cool special effects makeup work at the end that goes into some really like crazy places. It seems kind of like almost Evil Dead inspired in some places, and I think some of the special effects team have like worked on those films, so that was a good transition for them. But overall, it's a really fun time. And then it's ended up with Night of the Demons 3, which is definitely the weakest. And this is the first time that this one's on Blu-ray. I'll kind of go into the release history of all these in a little bit, but this was a little bit after Night of the Demons 2 came out. These were all kind of spaced a little bit between each other, like 4 or 5 years between each one. But This one takes a different tone, and this was written by Kevin Tenney, but it wasn't directed by him because they did production in Canada and they needed like a Canadian director. So this was by Jimmy Kaufman, and there's an interview with Jimmy Kaufman on this disc, and he is like, he's a character. I'll just say the least. But it's okay, but it's definitely the weakest. This involves like a group of kids. People think that they have robbed a liquor store. It's more like a case of like racism gone wrong. But these kids are hiding out from the police in this house that happens to be Hull House, and they get involved with Angela. And once again, it's, you can tell that the person who's like crafting this movie is not very familiar with this franchise, because there's a lot of stuff that's a little bit off, and just like it doesn't quite have like the style of the first two movies. There's things I like in this, but overall it's a very lacking sequel compared to the first two. There's things that are good about it, most notably the return of the woman who plays Angela, Amelia Kincaid. At first I didn't recognize it as the same woman throughout the three movies because she looks slightly different, but she does a really good job throughout each three of the films, I guess because there were so many years between each movie. I just kind of like, I was like, is that the same actress? And it was, because she has some good interviews on these releases. Night of the Demons has been released by Scream Factory before on Blu-ray, but is now newly getting a 4K scan of the original camera negative, the unrated negative, and it's a 2023 restoration of a previous 4K scan. This is presented in Dolby Vision, and what the Dolby Vision, the video looks very nice. It's a very impressive looking video transfer. It looks very nice. This isn't the most colorful movie, but the colors are deep and nuanced, and like has really nice resolved film grain. Everything looks nice visually. Where things kind of get a little bit messy is in the audio. There's some messed up audio in this. The first major thing is that there are 3 audio tracks. There's one original audio, there's one newly mixed audio, like a newly created 2.0 stereo track, and then there's a 5.1 track. The two 2.0 tracks, the stereo tracks, they are erroneously labeled. They are switched. So the original track is actually the remix track, and the new track is actually the original track. If you're a fan of this movie, you're going to want to pick the new track because that is the original track. The remix track has some weird looping and kind of sync issues where there were kind of lines created by MGM, I think, whenever this was originally released on video, that they didn't have quite all the elements, so they looped certain lines. So there are parts of this movie, especially in the climax, where things are out of sync. And that remix track was used for the 5.1 track. So there's the same issues on the 5.1 track and the remix track. And what kind of makes this extra egregious is that the 5.1 track on the previous release actually was fine. It was created from the original 2.0 track. So this new 5.1 track shouldn't have been messed up, but they used the source of the the remix tracks, which kind of sent everything askew. All of that to say is, if you're going to watch this and you don't want to have like sync issues and stuff, or egregious sync issue, there's like a minor sync issue that I saw on the original audio. Stick with the original audio, which once again is which is labeled the new stereo mix. I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. If you get confused, look for my review, or I detail this like very clearly. And this release is really stacked. This has 3 commentary tracks, 3 new interviews in addition to the previous Blu-ray releases, 3 new interviews that range from 9 to 35 minutes. There's also a newly included international cut in standard definition. And then you go over to the Blu-ray disc, which has a bunch of the port-over features and some new features. There's a 72-minute making-of featurette, several different interviews, including one of the stars, Linnea Quigley, who I know is a favorite of the channel. There's another work print version of the movie. There's a version to see some of the alternate title. This had an alternate title. I think it was like Halloween House or some Halloween Haunt something, but they had to change the name for legal reasons because the producers of Halloween thought that they were trying to ape them. And then there's also some various promotional stuff. So this is a really good release, but the audio is a little messed up. But there is a audio track that does sound really good. It's just, I wish there wouldn't have been any issues. The second movie release wise has been put out by Olive Films before. This was about 10 years ago when this was put out. This comes from a new 2023 scan of the Ender Positive. It's not a revelation, but it looks very nice. I wish this had been given a 4K. I think this was licensed through Paramount, so they probably didn't give them the 4K rights, unfortunately. But it looks very nice for what it is. There's some small deficits here and there, but overall, it's a very nice looking release. This has the 2.0 audio. Did not notice any anomalies with this one, thankfully. And this is also loaded with special features. So this has two commentary tracks, a 70-minute conversation between Kevin Tenney and Brian Trenchard Smith, which is pretty cool because they're kind of talking about each of their different approaches from like Night of the Demons and Night of the Demons 2. It's a really great conversation. This has 4 interviews that range from 13 to 49 minutes. There are a couple of the actresses, one of the makeup and special effects artists, one of the producers. It's very impressive. This has a additional word print version of the movie, and then over 2 hours of just raw dailies footage that you can watch. So they just stacked this to the gills of special features, which I also did with the third movie. As I said, that this has not been released on Blu-ray before. This is not noted as coming from a new scan or anything, but overall it looks decent. It's not the best quality. It was kind of like released in the late 90s, and it kind of has kind of that like straight to video quality that it doesn't quite look super filmic. It kind of looks kind of artificial, but like I think that was kind of more so the way it was shot. It's not the most appealing movie, but it looks okay for what it is. Also has the 2.0 audio. Once again, this has 2 audio commentary tracks, and listen to these audio commentary tracks because one is from the director, who I said is a character. The other is from Kevin Tenney and the editor. Both commentary tracks basically like they don't hardcore bash this movie, but they pretty much go to town on this movie throughout. So it's one of those commentary tracks that I love, where like the creatives are mostly allowed to just like speak their mind and say like every reason why this movie isn't as successful as it should be. And I think it's great. I love those type of commentary tracks. That kind of extends into some of the interviews. There are 4 interviews that range from 17 to 39 minutes, including Kevin Tenney and the director and the producer. And then there's also Amelia Kincaid, who plays Angela. She gives, I believe, a new interview on 2 and 3, and I think an archival interview on the first Demons movie. This also includes behind the scenes footage and again additional dailies, probably about 50 minutes of dailies that you can't see, some of which and there's also like a TV cut of this movie and a director's cut, some of which has like alternate footage and all that. So even if you're not the biggest fan of this movie, they've loaded it up with special features that I think will make you enjoy this release, just because like you get to learn a lot more about it and why it is a flawed movie, which is pretty cool. So if you're a fan of Night of the Demons, Scream Factory is doing some great work. All 3 of these movies are interesting in their own ways, even if they're not all successful. But I'm glad they put these out. It's a good discovery for me. But if you're already an established fan, I think this will be definitely one that you'll want to check out because there's really fun releases.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I have never seen the third film. I quite like the second one. Did you like the Brady Bunch reference in the second one, where they call her like Jan or like?
Oh yeah.
And then she went on to play
yeah
Jan. I thought it was funny. But anyway.
Yeah, I really like a lot of the humor in the second one. I think Trenchard Smith, he brought a lot of like interesting elements to that one.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like a retread. And I think I actually might prefer the second one as well. So I also want to kind of start on a high note here. This was one that I finally got, and I feel like you probably know which one I'm talking about just from that. And that is a Bronx Tale, 4K. Here's the back. And there's nothing like inside but just a disc. Yeah, I had heard of this film before, but like it really wasn't anything that I was sort of interested in like checking out, and I'm glad I did because I really like. So this is the directorial debut of Robert De Niro, who also stars in this, and it's a drama that is set in the I think it was like the 60s, and the story of a young kid named C befriending this sort of mob boss, while at the same time his dad, who's kind of like a working class guy, isn't making a lot of money, but he's trying to keep his son from really falling into like this mob lifestyle. I'm always kind of a bit wary about gangster movies. It's not that I don't like that genre. I just think some of them are tend to be very samey. Yet I feel like Bronx tells a really interesting story. It kind of acts as like a really nice coming of age tale, but it also really captures like America in a certain point in time, especially during like this really turbulent time of like racial tension. But it also kind of acts as like a sort of updated Romeo and Juliet, which almost sort of seems like West Side Story, but maybe more intense.
Mhm.
The themes of racial tension, what it means to be respected and feared, and as well as like connecting a father connecting with his son, vice versa, I think adds a really nice layer to this genre. So De Niro, he does a really great job. He has an excellent eye. Like this, like the way this film is shot, it feels really gritty. It feels very much like authentic and what I would feel like what I would think was sort of like how this time and place looked. There's like locations that look really scummy and disgusting and seedy, but then there's things that look really like, I don't know, kind of inviting. So like there's a really interesting push and pull with things like that. But yeah, I think he does a really excellent job. The acting, of course, is great. There was a lot of moments where I was like out loud being like, oh shit. My husband's on the other side of the room being like, what is going on with your movie? Because I usually watch it with like headphones and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of great I don't know if I'd say twists, but there's a lot of great set pieces, especially during the almost like the climax, which like really was good. And then like Joe Pesci just showed up, and I was like, you can't just spring Joe Pesci. Like that's that's kind of nightmarish. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Like it has this kind of dark sense of humor. It's not a comedy, but it sort of weaves a little bit of that in. Yeah, it's really great. I would say this looks overall really nice as well. There's a lot of like night scenes that like I feel like definitely probably do really thrive in this 4K scan. Like the blacks look really nice and deep. Skin tones look really nice as well. Again, this is not the most visual movie, but it does kind of capture that time feeling, and I feel like the color palette really does a nice job of evoking that sort of feeling. And yes, I think it looks great. I think it sounds great. I believe these are all like the extras are port overs from previous releases. So yeah, Bronx Tale. I really liked it. It's one of those that again wasn't really on my radar, but I thought it had enough really interesting story, character dynamics. The father son thing was really cool, and I want to also mention I could have swore this kid was like De Niro's son. Like he wasn't, but he looks so much like him. Like they really did a fantastic job casting this. Where I was like, I had to look it up because I was like, is this actually De Niro's kid? Because it's just so spot on. It's not, but like the casting of that was like pretty great. Um, so yeah, again, really good release. I think it's worth picking up, especially if you're sort of maybe not a big gangster movie fan, but when it has like a really great story and there's a really nice like the drama is really on point. I'm here for it. So
Yeah, that's one I've always been interested in. It's just kind of whenever I was like a burgeoning cinephile and I would just I was loosely familiar with certain people's works, I would just hear certain titles that I was like, I thought this was a Scorsese movie like that and like King of New York and stuff, which was an Abel Ferrara movie. I was just like, oh yeah, like a crime movie. It's Scorsese, but I realized I was like, okay, it's not. But like, it's an easy mistake to make since Robert De Niro is so associated with Scorsese. But I'm glad that this one got a 4K because it gives me an opportunity to finally check this one out in the best quality possible. So I'm glad that De Niro finally got to get this movie out in the way that he wanted to. So that's pretty cool. My next title, the rest of my titles, I will not be speaking out nearly as much length as my previous 3 titles, but this one's pretty impressive nonetheless. This is going to be hard to pick up probably on camera, but I'll do my best. It'll just look like I'm holding up nothing. This is from G Kids and Shout Studios. This is, let me get this, because this is a complicated title. Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.1 Thrice Upon a Time. And there's not even like, it's kind of like etched onto the spine, but you can't really see it. And then like the back, you can't really see anything. So there's nothing etched onto the back, but there's like, you can kind of see it etched a little bit, maybe, like the title. So it does say stuff. It just looks like I'm holding up a prop box. But you open this up. This is the collector's edition. And so you pull it out. You have, once again, kind of an etched thing here on the white part. All white. So you have the 4K disc, the Blu-ray disc with the same contents, and then a full disc for special features. And also there's some exclusives to the collector's edition. Whenever you do get the box, it's not just a plain white background. You get this little, not quite a J card, but a little slip that kind of like shows everything here, and you get a what order do I want to show you? So you have a kind of like a poster here. It's very, once again, very plain. So here it's just oh, never mind. Here you go. Oh, Jesus. There's the poster. So you get, with as much white as in this, I was just like, okay, they just did like a plain white poster. And then you get a booklet, which you can actually see the title here because I use black. But you get like, it's a bunch of artwork and stuff in here, and I believe there's some writing on, or like some there's some like writing in here that kind of like guides you through certain elements of the story. And then there's also these art cards come in here. They just open up carefully, and I believe there's 5 of these. Got 1, 2, 3. Am I right? Are there 5? Yeah. 4 and 5. So people may remember from a couple months ago, I did the complete series of Neon Genesis Evangelion. It was a complete box set of the series because this was coming out, and I wanted to kind of prepare myself for what this was. So that was the complete story for that. And then they, from what I've gathered from my research, because I'm far from an expert on this franchise, so hardcore fans, do not yell at me. I've done my best. There was the creator decided to do a rebuild of the story, where this is the 4th entry in a 4-film series that I believe started back in 2007. So this has been like going for a while. And what this was, the first film, I believe, pretty much almost directly adapted like the first 8 or so episodes of the series. And the second episode, it kind of followed a little bit more of the story and kind of branched off a little bit into its own path. And the third film, from what I understand, really shook up the story quite a bit and like introduced new characters and different themes. And then you finally have this 4th film, which, yes, it's not it's not the best for me to just be jumping into a fourth film. That I was quite confused during a lot of this movie, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. But this ties together the core story while fleshing out kind of the some of the elements introduced in this rebuild, and then you also get a whole new ending compared to what was the original series that I covered. But I really did like this movie, even though I was a little bit confused sometimes about certain specifics, because like I said, there's new characters introduced and everything. But overall, you kind of get the same spirit of the show, and I really like this. It's really gorgeous animation. Once again, like a story of like it's a mecha story about, but it's like more so a human story that has like what I really liked about the original series, that there's like a lot of big thematic elements like and questions in it, and there's a lot of that in here. There's a lot of like sci-fi elements like clones and like kind of like time travel-ish stuff, and like elements of like sacrifice and like questioning like what is like life and death and like these big weighty concepts. I think this does like a really nice job. It's a pretty epic movie. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long, 2 hours. It's a pretty lengthy movie, but overall it's very expertly crafted. It makes me want to like go and pick up the first three movies, which of course it's a no-brainer, but it's the type of movie that it makes you want to like understand everything that's going on and wants to like complete the story and really get a. If I hadn't seen the original series, I probably would have been like completely lost, but I knew enough to kind of like work my way through it. But overall, it's a really solid film, and this release is pretty awesome. This is the only release. There's standard Blu-ray release that is available. This collector's edition is the only way to get the 4K. But I do want to like make sure everyone knows, even though it's a 4K upgrade nonetheless, this does not have high dynamic range, which is a selling point for a lot of people. This is a standard dynamic range, but a 4K disc, just like, so it gets, compared to the Blu-ray, like a little bit better. Like you do not get as much like banding and some of the gradients, and like a little bit more just like subtle nuances that you just get the best version of itself compared to the Blu-ray, which is no slouch on its own. But you get kind of like all this extra, like slight extra clarity and like just like better encoding and stuff. So if you want the best version of it, it is exclusive to this collector's edition. Otherwise, if you're kind of hesitant, maybe check out the Blu-ray version and then maybe you'll want to upgrade. But I believe the Blu-ray version does include the bonuses that's included in this one as well. That's on that separate disc. So you get what that basically includes, which it is its own disc. There's like a ton of promotional featurettes, like tons of different trailers and promos and like teases for the movie and stuff. In terms of like really like hefty content, there's about like a 20-minute panel with the director and stuff when the movie was completed. They like in Japan, I think it's really interesting. They hold like a lot of like press conferences at the end, like for the public. It's kind of like a slightly different. We do something similar like at festivals, but they have like a kind of a different structure, which I like whenever they include those press conferences on these discs, which a lot of these do. So they have a lot of those elements, and like they have a couple shorts that bridge the third movie to the fourth movie included in this too, which include a lot of like numbers and stuff like 1.1 plus parentheses 40H and stuff. So there's a couple different shorts in here for that kind of bridge things for longtime fans. So Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.1 Thrice Upon a Time. This is a fun release. It's a good one, and definitely I feel bad for not having watched the other movies, but now I'm going to go buy them and have myself like a good marathon of all these.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. That is something that I am just so out of my depth. Like,
Yeah.
I just my only like I know they exist, but that's about it.
Yeah. Fair enough. It's a tough nut to crack, especially if you're like new to the world of anime. It's very intimidating to figure out like, okay, well, how does this compare to this series, and like why is this the same name but this is now a rebuild? Like, so Even I'm confused a little bit, so you're fine.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like Star Trek, where I want to get into it, but it's fair. There's so much of it; it's so intimidating.
Mhm.
But my next title is one that I know we're both a big fan of, and that is Yellowjackets, and this is season two.
Mhm.
And oh my God, do I love this series so much. I was having a hard time really taking my notes for this just because there's so much stuff I want to talk about, but it's all very spoilery. So I'm
Mhm.
going to be like super careful with like not spoiling anything. If you haven't seen it, you definitely should. But yeah, I know some people were kind of like had mixed feelings with this season, but I really do think it was a really solid follow up to the first season, which was so great. It does a really great job at sort of expanding the mythos. It does answer some questions, but it also keeps some of the mystery that was built up from the first season and carries that on. Like we still don't know who Pit Girl is. That's one of the huge unanswered questions. We still don't know if there's any other survivors out there. But yeah, it's a nice balance of satisfying answers, but it also raises some new ones that I think keeps it a little bit more interesting and engaging, keeping some mysteries really close to the best. The problems that I did have with this, and again, I'm going to try to speak very vaguely, was I don't know if I love how they handled like Nat and her sort of where she ends up. I'll just say I think is the vaguest way I can put that. It does have a finale, which was like, oh shit, this perfectly sets up the next season, but like you can tell like things are really ramping up where like the girls are going to be really even more desperate and probably much more cannibalistic. But yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. There are elements again that I don't think are the strongest. It's kind of weird that they have like a story arc with like Thais's girlfriend, or was it wife? Yeah, Thais's wife. Who they just sort of like forget about. And I think that's unfortunate because I think she could be an interesting character. I mean, a side character, but yeah, I don't know. I think that Misty is, of course, always my favorite character. I love that she has this like bizarre sort of musical number, which is great because she's a big musical fan, so it kind of tracks. But yeah, we get to learn more about her. We get to learn maybe more why she's so like deranged. In the present. But yeah, I like that we do have some nice featurettes. Um, I like that it included the Alanis Morissette's cover of No Return, which is amazing. That was so cool. I like when I first heard that, I like flipped out. I just thought that was the coolest. So yeah, I like how this is on Blu-ray. So I'm sorry I forgot to show off the discs. It is the gatefold style. There's no digital code with this. So yeah, I think it's a nice set. I think it looks really good. I'm happy that we have it looking really nice. And we have a nice Adobe track, and yeah, it's a good time. I still need to get the first season on Blu-ray, but again, I'm just happy that it just didn't get like no physical media release or maybe just DVD. So yeah, very appreciative of that. I know some studios are kind of frustrating, but we're not going to call anybody out, but uh if you know, you know. So
Yeah, whenever that was first announced, it was just for the DVD, and I was like, no, no Blu-ray. And then they announced the Blu-ray, and I was like, yay, we win. So I'm going to finally be able to check that one out. I covered the first season on the show last year, and I'm glad that the second season also hit Blu-ray. So I'm glad you got to cover it, and I'm excited to catch up because I have not watched the season yet. So I'm glad you did not spoil it for me. I appreciate that. Speaking of the world of like CBS, Paramount, and in the world of TV, this is I'll just jump into it. Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Volume 2. The first volume of this season came out, I believe, in the first week of January this year, which I reviewed for the website. And so here's the second half of the season. This, like the previous release, also includes art cards. So you get, I believe, 4 here. 1, 2, 4, and they like each kind of come with a little bit of information in the back. So all these here. So that is cool. And then there's also the 10 episodes on 2 disc here, just 1 on each side. So and these are half-hour episodes, so these are easily fit on 2 disc for 10 episodes. If you ask Warner Brothers, that's enough for 1 disc. So that's because that's what they do with Rick and Morty. But that's no shade. But so yeah, this season, or this half of the season, I think for those who haven't seen the show, what I like about this is it's kind of like a really good entry point for like young kids to get into Star Trek. I know we have like Star Trek Lower Decks, but that's animated, but it's not quite for kids. It's like more adult humor. It's not like super like adult, but it's for more skewed for adults. This is more skewed towards children, but people like me and others who appreciate like animation as a medium, like as an art form, and not just like as a type of storytelling. I like the way that they approach the Star Trek lore in this, because it's basically a group of characters who really want to be a part of the Federation, but they all kind of have something working against them that have like put them in their life at odds with what they want, and they just kind of like throughout the series they're trying to learn how to best live their lives in order to like get to be a Federation officer, and how to be a better person and use the knowledge that they're learning from like Starfleet and the holographic Captain Janeway from the Star Trek franchise, from Kate Mulgrew, learning with pretty much each mission more about themselves and how to like exist within this universe. And I think it teaches like kids especially like a really good lesson. In addition to just learning about Star Trek, you're learning about like more like good life lessons about like how to act, and like kind of like philosophical things about like patience, and because this is like a utopian society, so there's like a lot of good themes that I think a lot of more content geared towards children should kind of like foster, but like in a way that isn't talking down to them. It doesn't feel like you're watching a show for babies, but it's like it's good for young kids, because adults who are watching this will really appreciate a lot of the Star Trek Easter eggs that are thrown into this, because there are so many like things that you might not expect to be like in the background of certain scenes, or just like casually dropped, that like fans who are like longtime fans, they'll kind of go crazy for. But then like little kids, it's kind of like they're just kind of discovering this world and like how magical it is, and then eventually they can like evolve to like Next Gen or Deep Space Nine or whatever they want to like evolve to. And I think that's a really cool way to do like it. The way they approach this is really nice. I see a lot of people like unfairly dismissing this show because it is more towards geared for children, but I think that this is a universe that can like speak to all like demographics. So I'm glad that there's something like this for children. And like this second half of the season, what I really like is that these characters are at a point where they kind of got their bearings, and they kind of like have started to really kind of come into their own, and they are working towards that, like trying to get into Starfleet, while there is like this villainous role played by John Noble kind of in the background. And there's like a mixture of like overarching storylines along with like pretty much like case of the week type adventures. So it really does a nice job of balancing this throughout these 10 episodes. And I'm really super glad to have this on Blu-ray, mostly like prominently because this was recently canceled by Paramount Plus. It's being shopped. There's a second season that was like pretty much nearly completed that's being shopped around, which I hopefully someone will pick up. But this was canceled and removed from Paramount Plus. So it's like one of the casualties of Paramount Plus just like yanking some of their content and just be like, sorry everyone. So I'm glad that they are still like they still decided to release this on Blu-ray so it wouldn't be kind of like lost forever. I even looked, I believe, recently to see if I could purchase it digitally, and I'm not sure if it was available to purchase digitally. So thank God for physical media, because I probably would have never got to see this any other way, because I did not get around to watching this on Paramount Plus before they took it off. So thank God for Paramount and CBS for releasing it on physical media, and it looks really nice. Sounds great. The animation, it's a little bit more pedestrian, but it looks nice. It's kind of like that budget, like Nickelodeon-esque, but it's on Paramount Plus. But it looks nice, and this also comes with 3 featurettes that are fairly substantial. They run from 13 to 21 minutes long, so this isn't just like made for kids featurettes. This is actually for adults who like special features, so that's pretty cool that they included a few good special features. So overall, if you're a Star Trek fan, especially if you're a Star Trek fan with a little like little ones in the house that want to like share your passion with them, definitely check this one out. But even if you don't have kids, it's a fun series. So Star Trek Prodigy, season 1, volume 2, recommended.
Yeah, it's nice that since we were just talking about Star Trek might be a little intimidating. So this seems like a nice sort of like entry point for younger people. But you said it kind of fun enough for anybody to really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I love children's programming, so I'm always game. So if
Yeah.
you're open to it too, it's a good one.
There you go. So this is my one and only Warner Archive title, but we love them. We love covering them. So I have this week Westward the Women, which was definitely not on my radar, but pretty good movie. Pretty interesting. So this is based on a story by Frank Capra. Westward the Women is a drama retelling of a group of women traveling to California with aims to marry the gold miners there. So this is an epic that is really it's like a really interesting period in American history, one that I wasn't really that familiar with, and just the kind of incredible hardships these women had to go through while traveling. Some of the most unforgiving environments and conditions. Taylor in this seems to be having a really good time playing a real son of a bitch that just drives these women to complete this mission and really kind of transforms them into real women pioneers. I think this movie has a scope and scale that I really think is fitting for the story. It's one of those movies where I don't know. I don't think necessarily every movie needs to be like 2+ hours long, but I really think that they use the time wisely here. I like how the movie kind of really gives you a lot of time with these characters, and I mean, some of these characters don't make it, and there's definitely some harrowing moments that even someone as jaded as me is like, wow, that's a little bit, like unsettling. But there's this like you really do get a sense of time and place and character. And I think that's really important to have this sort of investment in these women. There's kind of this amazing sort of like I call it like the Spartacus moment where, it's like they're like, okay, Taylor's character's like, we're just gonna go back, we're gonna scrap this. And like the women are all like, hell no. They all come together and they're like, no, we're staying, we're gonna finish this. And it's like one of those moments where you're like, yeah, you're like, just it gets you like excited and gets you pumped for like the rest of their journey. And I think that's really good storytelling when you can really not only connect with characters, but really care about them. You want to see them on this journey. So yeah, I think this movie does like an excellent job at that. There are some things, I mean, it's very of its time, of course. You know, the gender politics are very of the time. It's not so bad that it was like unwatchable, but there is some moments that are like a little cringe. But I mean, I think ultimately, you know, these women earn the respect and admiration of Robert Taylor's character. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of sucks that they have to sort of work almost 10 times harder than the men just to get this sort of equal footing. But, you know, that's unfortunately kind of life, and, you know, life for, you know, marginalized groups, even now. So we do have a rare audio commentary track here, which was like always awesome. I don't recall if this is new or a port over, but it's very interesting. We do have some featurettes. There's the back again. And yeah, as always, I don't ever have an issue with how Warner Archives stuff's presented. Visually, it's great. Again, it's this movie that is very big budget. It's got a lot of like great settings, costumes. Everything looks really great. Again, I sound like a broken record with Warner Archive, but they never give me a reason to, you know, complain. There's no artifacts, no scratches. Everything looks really crisp and clean. So if this is something that sounds interesting, that if this was something that like for me was not on your radar, check it out. It's really good. I found myself really engaged and excited for this like journey, and like I said, it does have some moments that are like, holy crap, like I can't believe they're going there. And I don't want to spoil it, but like, if you know, you know. Have you seen this yet?
Yeah, I really like that one. It really surprised me like how good it was. I There's several things I know you said it's dated. I did like that, and I mentioned this in the commentary track, how the women are given a little bit more agency for the time than you would
Mhm.
think, because like in the very beginning, whenever they're being like signing up for this journey, they are allowed to like choose their husbands instead of like the men being able to choose like what women they want. The women get to like go up and like choose what photographs like appeal to them most, which is like a small thing, but I think that's really cool way to like give women a little bit more agency in their own story, like in their like storyline. So I like that, and just like how they do treat them equally, as far as like there's some very brutal moments. Like a lot of women do get killed along the journey and stuff, and they're not like
Yeah.
treated like, oh, we can't kill them off because they're like it. They're just treated like everyone else and stuff. So, and one other thing I want to mention, I do not know her name, the older actress that is in this. I did like seeing her in this one, because we saw her in Caged earlier this year, like as
Mm.
like a like a like a warden, like a not a warden, but like over the ward, like a
Oh
prison
yeah.
ward, and she
Mhm.
was such like an asshole. So seeing her in like this like nicer role, I'm like, okay, I don't completely hate you now. So like I have both a positive and negative association with her. So we're on good terms now. We're good. But like she was such an asshole in Cage that I was like, oh, I don't know if I can get over this, but she redeemed herself with this one.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it.
You good now? You good?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I'm so glad that Warner Archive brought that one into my life. And another one that I'm excited was brought into my life. Ever since this was announced, I've been so pumped. This is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I love this movie. And whenever anyone asks like my top horror movies, I always list this one. This is The Mist. This is from Lionsgate. It is a Stephen King adaptation by Frank Darabont, who did like Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. So he has success with Stephen King stories. But I love this movie, and this is the first of like two movies I'm going to talk about in which you kind of see how people react under extreme pressure, and how that kind of like feeds into like how we look at society. And yes, this is a 4-disc release, which I think is pretty awesome, because this includes both the color version of the movie and the black and white version of the movie, both in 4K. So that's fantastic. I love that. And then you also have the additional 2 Blu-ray disc of the same, with all the special features and stuff. So Lionsgate, they did this right. But for those who haven't seen the movie, it is a tale of like a small town where there's like this fast encroaching weather event, the mist. There's like a fast encroaching mist. All these characters go to like stock up at a local convenience store, and this mist all of a sudden like surrounds the store, and like they're all kind of trapped in here. And like within the mist there's like these basically Lovecraftian monsters that are just kind of lingering in the mist. So like tentacled monsters and like crazy like pterodactyl-esque insects and all kinds of stuff. So if you venture out into the mist, you're more than likely gonna die. But while yes, I love like the monster like creature feature element of this, it's really fun. There's a lot of like gnarly stuff within this, and it's especially effective in the black and white version. It's very atmospheric, and it's what Darabont said his intention was, but a studio in 2007 wouldn't allow him to release a black and white movie in theaters, so they had to do a color version. But that's why we have both, so we're good. But the creature feature stuff's fun. What I'm interested by is like all this stuff happening inside the store when people are kind of backed into a corner, and kind of seeing how people react in a panic. And it is not good because people are trash sometimes. And just like there's like this very religious woman played by Marcia Gay Harden, who like she like kind of whips people up into a frenzy, especially whenever she's kind of spared from a creature at one point, and then she's kind of like viewed as like a religious deity at one point. And then just kind of how people start turning on one another whenever they think they need to make sacrifices, and just how everyone has conflicting ideas of how they think they can survive this like event. It's awful, but it's also great. And I really love kind of like there's so many like great performances in this. There's a lot of people from the Walking Dead like that would go on to be in the Walking Dead, which Frank Darabont he started or he created. There's like but then there's also, like I said, Marcia Gay Harden, Thomas Jane, Sam Witwicky, so many people, Jeffrey DeMunn, Melissa McBride, so many people. But I think what this is most famous for, and I'm not going to give it away, is the ending. And people hate the ending. I love the ending. It is so dark. It is so bleak. I love it so much. It is so bold. I'm so glad that like an American movie like dared to like just be so unrepentantly like nihilistic. It's fantastic. I would expect this from Europe, but America, come on. But I love the ending. It's like it's a bummer, but I love it. It's this movie, I'm such a big fan of it. I'm so glad it's on 4K, and it looks really nice on 4K. This is in Dolby Vision. Like I said, you get both the color and the black and white version on 2 discs. They both look very nice. With this being like fog mist around it, it can be a little bit tough on the like whenever viewing the Blu-ray to like not have a bunch of like compression artifacts or a bunch of like all the like digital anomalies within the mist. It's very much like tightened up in this version. You can see a little bit of the seams of the digital effects a little bit, but I think it's not a problem with the encode. It's more so just like the movie just kind of sometimes showing its age in the digital effects department. But otherwise, you get so much extra rich detail within the environments, within the store, within like the skin characteristics, like lines of the face and facial hair. Colors are richer. The black and white has not better contrast. Very great. New Dolby Atmos audio sounds really good. Like whenever some of like those creatures do get into the store and you hear some sound effects overhead, it's very effective. It's really cool. And then you also have a good amount of special features. You have a commentary track from Frank Darabont. You have like a big making of featurette, several other featurettes like with the sound work and the cinematography, some interviews with the actors. Overall, this is a stack set 4 disc of content here. So, and considering you're getting 4 discs, I've seen this like priced as like a normal like 4K release. So it's like $22 maybe now on Amazon. So like this is a bargain in my like eyes, especially for the content. So if you're a fan like I am, definitely pick this up. There is a pretty cool looking steelbook for fans of steelbook. Make sure to look for that. But this standard release, I also like this. So pick it up. I love this movie, and maybe you will too if you're a sicko like me.
Yes, I love that movie a lot. I actually have one of the hazmat suits from the end of the film screen used. I'll have to
That's so
send a pic.
cool.
It's yeah, it's wild. It's like it's got the whole suit to get like there's like a logo on it, which is sort of hard to see in the movie, but like
Mhm.
yeah, I'll have to take a picture of it and hopefully post it here. But yeah, I love it. I love
Nice.
I want to yeah, definitely the ending is great. It is very bleak. Um but I think that's the point. Like that's, you know, the
Mhm.
whole it's not gratuitous.
Mhm.
It's very necessary, I feel like, for the story. But yeah, it's kind of weird that people don't seem to gravitate towards this. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that they did the black and white version because that's one I've wanted to see for a while. So that is definitely something I'm gonna pick up very soon. So I'm gonna bring it down a little bit.
Mm.
So I'm a big fan of canon films, and I like the the first couple Death Wish movies, but I had never really seen any like the later sequels. So uh, Death Wish 4 is from Kino Studio Classics. We do have a new commentary track. Um, Here, no reversible, or yeah, there's different artwork, but I don't think that there's reversible. Nope. Um, yeah, I I don't think this one is as bad as some people think it is. It definitely is not great, but I found it pretty entertaining, especially watching this sort of back to back with the fifth film, which is really not good. But this is very much a 80s just say no. Um, it's, you know, basically like Bronson's character really taking this like war on drugs in a quite literal, you
Mm.
know, like killing drug dealers and stuff. It's very cringy and eye rolling, but I think like if you can sort of separate yourself from that, I it's there are some really well directed scenes and sequences. There's a really funny one with a wine bomb explosion with a very young Danny Trejo in it. Um, this has one of my favorite bad guy deaths, maybe of all time. Like, I don't, I really don't want to spoil it, but it's again, if you know, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just amazing. It's again, I don't Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but it's so good. Because this guy's such a shithead that you just want him to die really
Mm.
violently, and he does. And I will say, I think like unlike the next film, they really do try to give Bronson's character like a little bit of an arc or like something to sort of really motivate him to, you know, go back to being a vigilante, and you know, it kind of establishes that like after the third film, he like tried to like have a normal life and was dating this woman, and she has a daughter. He's kind of a surrogate father to her. Um, and she, you know, ODs, and you know that of course kind of spurs him to, you know, go on his rampage. But this is also kind of interesting because he's sort of being manipulated by this guy to sort of do his dirty work, which I think adds like an interesting kind of level um, versus him just sort of going around killing people. It's, you know, adds a little bit more texture to the film. The commentary track is really fun. I highly recommend giving that a listen to. I really wish there would have been maybe like a featurette or something or a new interview, but yeah, I'm happy with the commentary track. That's like one of my favorite features. So Death Wish 4, it's not terrible. It's pretty entertaining. It's very cheesy. It's very 80s. I think the cheese factor sort of helps gloss over it being sort of like very dated and very um of the time. But Yeah, it's definitely not the worst of the series. That is the next one that I'm gonna be talking about later, but yeah, it's fine. I would definitely recommend it. I mean, especially if you're a big like canon fan, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, based on everything I've heard about the sequels, like I think I might just stop at Death
Yeah.
Wish and just like not go beyond that. Even I know Death Wish 2 has a nice 4K from Vinegar Syndrome, but I don't know, I might just preserve just Death Wish and just not worry about it anymore. But I'm glad that it's out for fans of Canyon films, that I'm very hit or miss with them. So we good for them. My next title is from Film Movement Classics. It's one I was very interested to check out. This is Passion from Ryosuke Hamaguchi, who won best international film a few years ago with Drive My Car. I've talked about another one of his films, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy on this show before. And he has a new movie coming out that's currently on the festival circuit. But we are going back to his first film. And when I say first film, there's a little bit of like debate on what if this is actually his first film. This was actually a graduate film for him. So this is an actual film, but it was one that he kind of made very like cheaply and just like for his graduate school. So it's interesting that it is getting like this wider release, which I think is worth it. But if you're expecting something like Drive My Car, I think you need to kind of rein in your technical expectations, because it is kind of like that more like kind of has that more that video look, very intimate, handheld, like aesthetic, and it's just very kind of like fresh filmmaking. But it's a fine looking movie. And what I think is most important here is, at least for this effort, is the story and the character dynamics. And what this is basically, at the beginning of the film, there's like a group of friends who come together to like eat dinner. One of the pair of friends, like a man and woman, they announce that they are engaged, and this sets off like a chain of like events where like everyone kind of starts kind of revealing the truths that they've been kind of holding back for a while, now that they're like, oh, we don't really think you should get married, and like, oh, I actually have a crush on you, and like I like you kind of start to kind of learn all these different character dynamics that everyone's been keeping at bay because they just like being polite. And but then like all these kind of friends, they start to split off for a night, and you kind of see each of them kind of go on their own journeys. And you see people questioning if they're in the relationship they should be in, or like just kind of where they're at in their lives. There's like a new, like, one of the couples are new parents and stuff. And then there's just like a lot of different dynamics within this friend group that are explored pretty damn well, just like as you start to learn about each of these characters, and like you understand like why certain characters are maybe a little bit standoffish because of like something that happened in the past, or like why this character is putting on this certain front. It's a good character driven piece. It's very intimate. It's not very like grandiose. Like I said, Drive My Car is a little bit over 3 hours. This is not quite that, but it's an hour and 56 minutes. But I think it uses the content, the runtime pretty well. You get a lot of, if you're into like deep, long conversations between characters, if that's your shit, I think you're really like this. If you kind of start to get like a little bit bored when things go on a little bit too, like sequences start to go on a little bit too long, I think you need to like prepare yourself for this one. But overall, I really did like it. It is a rougher effort, but I'm glad to see kind of this more starting point from him, especially since he's made several films since this time that I really loved, and this is just like a really good starting point. And since it does have that kind of low rent quality, this isn't the most beautiful. Like, I don't think it's newly restored or anything, but it looks fine for what it is. It was like a 2007 film, I believe, and it looks fine for like the time that they were using like HD cameras and stuff. It looks good. Japanese audio. This does have like a 3 or 4 minute introduction from Hamaguchi, who kind of just talks about how this film came about, and his kind of ideas about this. And then there's like another 10-minute video essay from like a film historian, kind of like talking about this film, the thematic resonance of it, and also kind of connects it to the movie I talked about earlier, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, kind of how a lot of those actors from this movie repeated in that movie, and how some of the themes kind of connect from movie to movie, all that stuff. So if you're a fan of Hamaguchi, definitely check out this early work. If not, check out some of his newer work like Drive My Car or Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. And then if you're interested enough, go back and see where he started out with, because I don't think you'll be disappointed if you're already a fan, but you might want to get that kind of groundwork for him before going to like his like graduate school work.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like Drive My Car is really great. Definitely want to check out more from that director. So, yeah, I will sort of prepare myself for maybe some of the more maybe challenging aspects, but that sounds interesting. So this is like I think this is the only movie this week that I really just hated. Um, so let's get into it. Death Wish 5, The Face of Death. This is the final Death Wish movie. Um, it again has a commentary track. It's pretty entertaining. So this one sort of deals with again, he has a new love interest. She is in the world of high fashion, so that's sort of where this movie's set. And we have the mafia, and Bronson is sort of caught up in this sort of like mafia thing. And I will say the one thing that I find kind of interesting about this film is in a lot of the other ones, it's not really sure how like evenly matched it is. Like, especially the first one, it's like he just mows people down like nothing. And I'm not saying that's like a good or bad thing, it's just a thing. So, this is where it seems like it's a little bit more like, oh shit, he's probably going to be in trouble. But Bronson is just very old looking in this. He just looks very tired. He looks very much like he just does not want to sort of be doing this. I don't feel like he's really kind of in it for, like it just seems like a paycheck to him. Like even the previous film, it seemed like he was like present. He was like really trying to give it his all. Like it just, he's not having a good time here. This also has the same cover art, no reversible art. But yeah, it's not very good. It's very forgettable. I think it has a trans character that is very grossly portrayed, and um there's always this sort of debate whether or not like you could have trans villains or queer villains, or like I don't know. I think since we didn't have a lot of really good trans portrayals like we do now, um even like it's just hurts even more when you have like something really like really really shitty. um so that kind of further adds to like how unpleasant and gross this movie is. And it just does not wrap up, I feel like, his character. Like his character doesn't really have like a full arc here. It's just very much a okay, we're gonna do this thing. Clearly, this was the last one. It's probably for the best. I never saw the remake, but I hear it's pretty meh. So I don't know. I think this. I honestly kind of think that like Death Wish could be an interesting series, like a TV series. But yeah, this kind of ends the series on sort of a low note, which is unfortunate. Both of these releases do look really nice, though. I will say the visual presentation is really nice. Um, both films are not particularly great looking, but um, again, when you see like night scenes or things that are a little bit like darker and grimier and grittier, like you do get that extra sort of clarity that's, well worth it. So, not, I mean, definitely check out part 4. It's fun. I think some of the sequels are fun, but part 5's really not good. But if you're a completist, they have you covered, and I do like the new commentary track. That is a lot of fun. So, yeah. Your mileage may vary, but kind of meh, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's one I'm gonna have to definitely try to like quell my completionist tendencies and be like, you do not need this. You do not need this. You can just stop at 1. You do not have to get any more. So, um, good luck to the fans who do decide that they need part 5 because it doesn't sound the best. My next title is from Warner Brothers. This is the volume 9 of RWBY, which you talked about the crossover with Justice League before, which we should be getting a second part to in the coming weeks. But I reviewed the previous 2 volumes of this, 7 and 8, for the site before, and here we are with 9. And so you get so what I really like about this series especially is these releases always come super stacked with special features. So you have the 10 episodes of this season on disc 1, include and with a commentary for every single episode, and then you have a whole disc of special features, which I'll get into in a little bit. But for those I won't go too much into like plot because this is volume 9 of a show. So if you're interested, you probably pretty much know, but just for kind of give the bare bones, this picks up slightly after the events of volume 8, where the characters find themselves in a new foreign land called Ever After, where they have to kind of like figure out like where they are, why they're there, and kind of like what they want to do after like suffering some of like the big losses that they just suffered at the end of volume 8. And what I can mostly say about this particular volume is it's a good volume. There's a lot of really good stuff I really like about it. It is one that I think could by some be considered a little bit like a throwaway volume because it's kind of gets away from like some of the larger plot points of like the series and like kind of their big antagonists throughout from the beginning. Kind of they don't even really show up. This is more like an interior season, which I do really love. I love character building seasons, and this is a lot of just like especially RWBY wrestling with like who she is as a leader, whether or not she's effective, and this deals with a lot of heavy themes and stuff, and including like suicidal ideation and stuff, which is not completely framed that way, but it's in their world kind of it's similar. Like, but there's just a lot of just like self-reflection and just like a lot of the characters reckoning with themselves, and it's not always handled elegantly, but it's handled well. And there's a lot of points that did really move me, and but I just really hated to see the characters in certain situations this season, but I think it was a strong character building season, and I am interested in continuing this series if they ever do, if they do make a volume 10. I think this season was a little bit hamstrung by they're having fewer episodes in some of the previous volumes. This was only 10 episodes. I believe the previous volume was like 13 or 14 episodes. So there are some plot threads I think could have been fleshed out a little bit more with another couple of episodes. There's one like I think completely like throwaway episode, but other than that, it's a pretty solid season. Even if they're rewatching this, which I know a lot of RWBY fans will like rewatch these like seasons over and over. This might be one they maybe skip in the future or like not watch as much because it's just not as essential to the overall plot. But overall, pretty good. So this looks very nice on Blu-ray. It keeps up the high quality of the volumes I've reviewed in the past. It has good sound, but where this really excels, like I said, is the special features. You get a commentary track by the creator and the various writers for every single episode. You get, let me get into it. There's a comparison video between like the like animatics and like finished episodes for like several key sequences. There's 2 different web series that are like included. One has like 9 or 10 episodes of one web series, and then there's like another web series that kind of like ties into the larger universe. There's a 43-minute roundtable with some of like the cast and creative team. There's promos and stuff. There's like a ton of special features. So this is one that they did not skimp on. The last season had even more special features, but still they did a really nice job with this one. So if you're a fan of the series, this continues to treat you right on physical media. I'm glad they keep releasing these on Blu-ray. It's just like maybe not the strongest season, but still a lot of fun. So if you're a fan, the Blu-ray keeps up the high quality that you expect from the series.
Nice. That is one that very new to the series, but is interesting. And I'm really excited because my final title is one that I never knew I really needed in my life, and now I love it. And that is it's just part of the Mortal Kombat Legends line. This is Cage Match, which of course is about Johnny Cage. That artwork is just great. Back, and I honestly really wished this would have came with a poster, but it did not. So this has a digital code that is not in there now, but if you order it, yours will have that. Yeah, so I have pretty much enjoyed every sort of Mortal Kombat thing that Warner Brothers has put out. But this kind of might be my favorite. So this is, of course, an origin story of Johnny Cage, the self-absorbed actor in the Mortal Kombat series. This is set in the 80s, and of course, it very much looks like it. Right away, we get this really cool retro Warner Brothers logo. The animation is one of the coolest aspects of, I mean, it's a good story, but like the animation is really awesome. Like it's just this very at times over stylized, like neon 80s kind of look. I love it. I think that it works really well. It's very fun, it's very vibrant, but it never gets too obnoxious or one note. They really do some interesting things with it, and it just never feels like just a constant sort of assault on your eyes. We get a very interesting looking film, but I also kind of like how it stays sort of in the house style of the other entries. The voice acting is great. I wasn't sure about Joel McHale as Johnny Cage, but he really does a good job. He kind of has that sort of cocky but lovable sort of persona, and that's very much Johnny Cage. The story is very brisk, solid. The action is really great. There's a lot of amazing set pieces. It's just a really good time. I also wanted to just mention this is not for kids. There's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of blood. They have this sort of like Gilbert Godfrey. It's not Gilbert Godfrey, obviously, but like the guy sounds just like it. Unlike unless this was like recorded a long time ago or something. But oh no, I guess I looked it up and I guess was his voice, but he had passed away, so maybe this was something he recorded a while ago. But yeah, he is absolutely kind of filthy, and it's kind of interesting because like he's done a lot of these like family friendly movies, and so him dropping the F-bombs is pretty interesting. But yeah, it's a good time. I really feel like there's not a lot of complaints. I kind of love there's a lot of fun references to actors and directors of the day, but they can't really say their names, so they have to come up with creative ways. There's even like a sort of fourth wall break where they're like, oh, he goes to say it like I think it's supposed to be Spielberg, but he goes to say it and it bleeps him and he's like, why the fuck did you just bleep me? And then it's like, oh, he's like almost kind of talking to the lawyers off screen of why he can't say. So I don't know. It's kind of fun. It's sort of like a Deadpool moment. There's not a lot of that, so I didn't mind it. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. Again, I didn't really know I needed this, but holy crap, it's great. And the commentary track is a lot of fun. Highly recommended. I think it's a really great release.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. I love Mortal Kombat, and the Mortal Kombat Legends line has not really disappointed me yet. Johnny Cage isn't my favorite character, but I'm still very excited to check it out because I do like this series. And fun fact for me, I actually got to see Gilbert Gottfried several years ago at a podcast festival on stage. He was one of the guests. And if you've ever seen his stand up comedy, he is very filthy in person. So it does not surprise me he was dropping some F bombs. But it's cool that his voice at least still lingers for this one. That's a cool treat for fans. My final title, I'm not sending us out on the highest of notes, but this is more like me wrestling with my own feelings about this one. This is from MBD Entertainment, and this is Vile. So there is a specific reason I decided to check this out whenever I've been I've been trying to be a little bit more picky about certain like horror movies because there's so many horror movies and like torture porn movies or just gross out movies that like I know has a audience, but like it's just not for me. This does have reversible cover art, which I'll show off. But what really drew me to this one is this is directed by Taylor Sheridan, who like created Yellowstone. He like wrote the Sicario movies and Wind River and stuff. But this was his first directorial effort. And I think from what I could tell, this seems like to be one that he would rather people forget that he directed because he's more like respectable now and like it's did like a lot of like award nominated dramas. Like he's written a lot of stuff, but this is just kind of like a schlocky horror movie. And he's just like, oh yeah, I did that, but just don't count that, please. But he needs to own up to it because there's interesting things here, but this is basically it's like kind of like a mixture of like Saw and the Belko Experiment and a few other like movies of the time. This was like made in like 2011, 8, somewhere in that late odds to mid like or early teens. What this basically is like a group of friends. They're like out having fun. They pick up a woman at a gas station whose car has like broken down and she needs a ride because she like needs to get gas and stuff, and they're out kind of in the middle of nowhere and they're like, yeah, sure, even though dude's girlfriend is like, what the fuck are you doing? You do not know this woman, like she seems a little off, don't do it. And he's like, I need to do this. And then, of course, whenever they get to her car, she knocks them out with gas, and they wake up in like a random house. And there are other people in the house already there. There's a recording that kind of like announces why they are all there. They all have these little devices on the back of their head. And what they are asked to do is they have to basically inflict as much like pain and cause as much like fear and like the reasoning is like there is like a certain like chemical that is released in your brain whenever it thinks it's going to die, and they are like harvesting this chemical to use in like the manufacturing of a certain drug. So they have to really like conjure enough within themselves to reach like 100%, and they'll be like released free from this room. So they can do that however they want, but basically how they can do this is just like basically torturing each other in order to release this in order to get to 100%. But basically how this works out is they all have to kind of work together to figure out how they are going to do this. And like this is kind of what I mentioned about like with the Mist, like people coming together and like seeing how they work under pressure, because like are they all going to share their fair share of pain and like torture and like getting nails ripped out or like an iron on their skin or bones broken and stuff? Or are people going to start turning on one another when they don't want to voluntarily subject themselves to pain and start to like actually go kind of almost feral and like start like raging against people, and just kind of how they interact in this kind of intense situation? And I did not really like the beginning because it kind of seems very low rent and just like very poorly acted and stuff. Like the first 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Once I actually got in the room, I started to become more interested because of the concept. And I did start to at least get invested in how they were going to get to 100%, how they were going to like a lot of the torture, it ends up being kind of more the same, like picking out, like plucking nails, like ripping nails out, and like boiling water and stuff. Like there's stuff like that, but they do get a little bit creative. But it's when they start turning on one another that I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. But then kind of the ending, kind of, it's a little bit underwhelming. You're just like, oh, okay, because you're trying to figure out like what, like about who is making them go through all this and stuff. And so the beginning and ending's a little bit the middle is a little bit intriguing. There's some very shoddy acting, but overall it was intriguing enough that I kind of overlooked it. It's just kind of like a fine horror movie. If the concept that I described intrigues you, check it out, because I think it delivers on the concept of just like how will like 8 or 9 people who are in a house decide that they are going to experience pain, or how will they work together or fall apart. It delivers on that. I don't think it's executed completely well because of like the bookends, but overall it's good enough. I started out not liking it, but then it kind of won me over, and then it kind of lost me, but it was still fine. So this was a little bit of a mixed bag. But overall, I think it's worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of Taylor Sheridan, want to see this kind of anomaly in his career that's like a lot more like gory and like unlike any of his other work. But if you're just like kind of a genre fan, it's fine. There's much better, but it's fine for what it is. Just like a low rent, low budget horror genre exercise, kind of like torture porn. So there's not really much in the way of special features. There's like 3 deleted scenes. The video, it does not look refreshed or anything. It looks kind of like video-ish quality, like not super great like digital capture. It's fine, but not very textured or anything. One big disappointment is this has Dolby 5.1 lossy audio. I wish they'd done DTS lossless audio. This does have an LPCM 2.0 track, which sounds, I think, better to my ears. But I don't know why they just didn't do lossless audio on the 5.1 track. Seems kind of a missed opportunity, but I did want to point that out. So Vile from MBD Entertainment. It's a thing. It's a thing.
It's a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the premise sounds interesting. I don't know whether or not that's like interesting enough for an entire movie, but I think it might be something. It definitely might be like a try before you buy kind of situation. It sounds like.
Yeah.
And with that, guess that is our.
Sorry, I
um,
ended it on like a kind of note.
it's fine. I mean, they can't all be winners, and I mean that's the fun thing is like, what do we think of these? Like, maybe they're for you, maybe they're not. But you know what? It just makes the great releases all that more like satisfying when you really get a good one. This one. So as always, you know, we do this show weekly, so please subscribe. We all have some other really great content on the way. I did a review of the new Pet Cemetery. Spoiler alert, not good. And Dom and I did a review for Amityville Death Toilet. Um,
Well,
it's a crappy movie, and you will be entertained by our review, hopefully. So those are some things that are coming up. And as always, just likes, comments, all that stuff is really awesome. That helps get the show out there. And thank you for hanging out with us.